Hey there guys, Roy from Apotheca Marketing. Hey, we have seen a bunch of people and we've helped a bunch of people implement Google Analytics 4. As you may or may not know, Google announced a while back that the current Google Universal Analytics was going away starting next year in July, so July 2023. So a lot of people went and implemented GA4. If you haven't, you should, because you want that historic data. And they basically have been running it in parallel with Google Universal Analytics. And most people are still using the old Google because it's frankly easier to use and the reporting seems to be a little bit better and people are used to it, all that stuff. We get it. But so people have turned on, in many cases, GA4, done in some cases a simple implementation just to have that, traffic data and that kind of stuff. But we are seeing some issues because the setup is a little bit different. Some of the defaults are different. So we're going to go through some of the things that we're seeing to make sure that you have it set up correctly so that you're not losing data. Because if certain things aren't turned on or if certain things are turned off and you're not collecting that data, it's not there for you. It's gone. So if you want true year-over-year data or a more accurate look at your data, we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do to improve it today. All right. So one of the biggest things is if you go into Google Analytics 4's GA4's reporting and go into Explore. Explore can be a relatively powerful tool because it lets you do custom reporting and you can build different dimensions and different metrics and all sorts of cool stuff. And we'll do more videos on that in the future where we look at some of the reports that you can do. We do have some for paid search and that type of thing that we've done already. But if you are in there and you go to do a longer view of your data, so say you want to do 6 months, well, you may find that that data is not there. It doesn't exist. It may exist in the other reports on the site, but mysteriously it doesn't exist in the Explore reports. And that is because by default, GA4 is set to only record 2 months of historic data in the Explore reports. 2 months is all you have. And once that date rolls off, that data is deleted. And so there's no getting it back. So it's a very quick fix. All you have to do is go into the admin settings, go into the data retention settings, and then you can switch that to 14 months. So 14 months is the only window they give you built into the Explore reports and looking back. In my opinion, it's still very narrow window of data to look at. I would, like to be able to look at 2 years potentially. But that is what they give you. If you want to look back further in your data, as many people do, you're going to probably need to do Google BigQuery, where you can start to, export your data into that, and then it'll be a data repository for more storage and a longer look back. Keep in mind that it looks like Google is also moving to use BigQuery with Data Studio, or what they're calling Looker Studio now. So you may be forced to use BigQuery in the near future anyway. There is a free integration with GA4 that has a limited amount of data, but probably a decent amount of query data and storage data for most people's needs. But you have to go through and set up Google Cloud and activate BigQuery and then integrate that with Google Analytics. We'll do a video on that in the near future to show you how that's done. It's actually a very powerful tool, and the fact that it's free is pretty cool, but you do need to know SQL. But that is your data storage option right now, is to set up BigQuery or to start exporting or connecting to some other data retention platform. All right, something else that people seem to forget, or maybe they just didn't think about it because they're still using the Google Universal Analytics, is to make sure that you are connecting your data sources. So that's, Google Search Console, it's your Google Ads integration, it's Google Merchant integration if you're a retailer, but you can go into the settings and make sure that you're connecting those. Keep in mind that with the Google Search Console that If you do connect it to your GA4 account, you're no longer going to be able to get that data into the GA Universal account. So making that switch over is kind of a commitment, but if you want, again, year over year data, you should do it now to make sure that all of that organic data is getting pulled into your reporting. Obviously, that data is still available over in Google Search Console, but if you want it in your dashboard, you want to be able to use it in your reports, you should make that connection now. So don't forget to go in, you can go into the admin, make those connections, and that way you're pulling in that data and have the historic data to look at. All right, one of the areas that we see that people forget is enhanced measurements. So when you're doing the initial implementation, you can go in and basically set up some things that are default. It's stuff that you would have, in some cases, had to do manually in Google Universal Analytics. They kind of come out of the box now. So things like tracking scroll and obviously clicks, and there's even form tracking, what you have to turn that on. So if you go into your enhanced measurement part of your setup under your web streams, you can start, out of the box, tracking things like page views, scrolls, video metrics, like start video, that kind of stuff. All that stuff was events that you would have had to set up manually before. Now it's automatic, and you just need to make sure it's turned on. Oh, and site search is part of that too. So out of the gate, you can do on-site searches, which is extremely helpful. That way you can, see what people are searching for on your site. So you've got them to your site. Maybe they didn't see it right away. You can start to see, like, what are people searching for on our site, and are they finding it? Is it something that we need to refine in our on-site search algorithms and tools? And so it gives you the option and the ability to put in the different types of queries that might be default for your on-site search. It could have search in the URL. It might just have a question mark. So depending on how your website works, you can put in the search queries that are default on your site to make sure that GA4 is tracking those. All right, we're running into this now too, is in preparation for the D-Day of Universal Analytics going away. It's a big job to change your reporting. And, there's lots of people and companies that I know that have spent immense amount of times custom building Excel reports or reports in Tableau or Data Studio, now Looker Studio, custom reports for their clients, for their executives. And that takes an immense amount of time. Well, GA Universal is going to be going away. So now is the time to actually be looking at switching over some of those reports to GA4 data. And that's not always as easy as you think, because some of the metrics are different and some may be missing. And so what you might be pulling now from, Google Universal Analytics may not actually be available by default in GA4. Conversion rate is a good example. For whatever reason, conversion rate was, not just out of the gate initially when GA4 was launched. It's something you could calculate, that kind of stuff. But it's something to take into consideration that some of these metrics are changing. So sessions are a little bit different. Page views might be different. There's other events and that kind of stuff that have different names. So you're going to have to change those in, for instance, your Data Studio. You'll have to switch over to a different view of the data, and then, start pulling in different metrics that have different names. In some cases, they may not even be available. So it is something to consider, and definitely start switching over those reports now so that you're not caught shorthanded and scrambling when when you don't have a choice anymore. We've already started doing this with our clients and the people using Google, but start preparing them for the differences in the reporting and metrics in GA4. And so we have a video, which we'll link to down below, that talks about the differences between GAU and GA4 and how the definitions and some of the terminology has changed. So how sessions are measured is different. Events are different. There's a list of things that are going to take some getting used to. The other thing that is different is by default, GA4 uses an AI data-driven attribution instead of last click attribution. Last click attribution was default in Google Universal Analytics. That is not the case today. You can still use it. You can choose that as your attribution of record. But by default, it's the AI data-driven model, which theoretically is more accurate, but is going to change sometimes your numbers, dramatically, because it's giving credit to other channels rather than just the last click channel. So it's spreading the interactions, the credit for multiple interactions that a customer might have with your website and with your marketing campaigns. And it's spreading that credit out across multiple metrics or multiple campaigns. Where that is going to be disconcerting for some people is they're not going to see they might see, a fraction or a percentage of a conversion as part of a channel rather than just complete conversions. And they're going to see completely different numbers from a year over year perspective. So if they're looking at data that was, from a year ago and now they're looking at GA4, those numbers are going to change dramatically. So by having people start preparing them about that, maybe defining metrics for them, so coming up with, so that they can understand what those metrics mean and how they're different, is a great idea to start doing now. And then obviously building out those dashboards and reports, like we just mentioned, now's a good time to start getting that in front of them so that they're used to seeing those different numbers. They can kind of see them, across reports, so they can start to prepare and mentally prepare for the change, because it will be a dramatic change in some of these numbers from what you're used to seeing. So getting your teams ready for that, letting them know that the change is happening, and offering them definitions about, what does this mean for the reporting is probably a great idea to do, and something that is going to help with the transition. One thing you don't want to forget, and if this is important to you, it can really impact your numbers, but one thing you don't want to forget is when you're setting up GA4 is to make sure that you are excluding your internal traffic. And so, this may not be important for your company. You may not have a lot of people on your internal team that are clicking on the site regularly and doing stuff, but we do have clients where their call centers, for instance, use the website very extensively. They will get a customer on the phone, conduct a search on the site, guide them through what they're looking for, and you have an entire call center that's doing this on your website. That's a lot of traffic, a lot of interactions that aren't leading necessarily to a conversion. And so it's going to skew your numbers. It's going to lower your conversion rates. It's going to, artificially inflate certain traffic to certain parts of the site. And so you don't really then understand how customers are using the site. You're going to get a lot of data about how your call center is using the site. And this is the same even on teams where we've worked with companies, for instance, that, when somebody logs onto their computer, the company website is what comes up as default. And so it's adding traffic to the site that's not really legitimate traffic, because that person just launches their browser and by default, the company website comes up. I don't know why they do that, but there are companies, I've worked for companies that have done that. It's just adding search and volume, or adding traffic and volumes to the site that is not legitimate. So making sure that you're blocking the right IPs, which is not always as easy as it sounds, and can cause problems. So make sure you're doing it correctly. But if that is a need for you, then don't forget to do it, because it may have already been done in Universal Analytics and you probably didn't get around to doing it in GA4 yet. So make sure that you definitely do that sooner than later, again, so that you don't suddenly have this huge disparity in numbers, because the last thing you want is once you switch over to GA4 reporting, suddenly traffic is through the roof and there's no way to account for it. It's probably from internal traffic. So making sure that you do those exclusions and filters is a great way to do that. And remember, GA4 doesn't have the views and some of the filters that Google Universal Analytics did. So, you have to take that into consideration as well. So are there things that you're finding with GA4 that are different, that you didn't expect or that you didn't think about? hit us up, send us a message. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you're running into and if you have problems and what is causing you, concerns as you near the switch over to GA4. Again, there's a checklist that, you can go through to make sure that these are all implemented, but this is stuff that, people really weren't necessarily paying attention to GA4 when they're implementing it. They just did a simple implementation, just running it in parallel. So there's basic data, but you want to go back in and make sure that you audit it, that it's set up correctly, that the events are coming through correctly, that you have your commerce tracking set up correctly, that you're tying in, for instance, if you're a retail site, that you're tying into your, data layer and making sure that all of those events are correct. Because they might be named different, or there might be different naming conventions that you'll need. And, make sure that the data is coming in from all the sources that you're needing. The UTMs should be coming in correctly, that you don't really need to adjust. But just make sure that you're connecting all your campaigns that need to be connected on the back end. Hey guys, if this was helpful, let us know. And of course, subscribe. We would love to see you come back for more of these videos. And of course, comments, emails, and suggestions are always welcome, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.